What if there was a way forward in life that was filled with ease, empowerment, and a sense of direction? I'm Debbie Rosenfelt, personal empowerment mentor and guide, and you're listening to Elevated Embodiment, a way to calm the chaos in life by taking radical accountability for where you are. On this day, I am feeling bright, light, and blessed. This is a guest episode with Stefanie Joseph, who just has a heart of gold and has a phenomenal story to share with us today. Welcome, Stefanie.
Thank you. And what a beautiful welcome. And I will play along. Today I am
please.
feeling calm. I'm feeling very excited. I love sharing my story.
Yes.
And I wanted to just your brightness is exuding from you. Like it just is coming through you. So yeah. Ooh, my chills.
Thank you. Why don't you share a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Stefanie Joseph, as you introduced me on here. I live in Utah. We were just chatting before here that we're not too far. We're kind of in the west world of the country. I have two children of my own and a bonus son, and married to love of my life for always 15 years. This is our 14th year. And my adult life was a quest journey. I definitely was always in the seeking stage from, pretty early on. But really over these last couple years, when we'll get into it, but I feel like I don't know if I'll ever be at an end of a seeker, but I'm resting more in my body now and just fully embracing and experiencing this life, not seeking for what's next, but just being super present. And yeah, I feel that feels good right now to share because I know more will come out.
Well, and that's even part of your work is being more present now, but also sharing that with others and how they can bring that into their own lives as well, especially after a deep, deep loss and or just going through a really difficult time.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to share your story, if you will, because I know everybody will just love it.
Thank you. So it starts actually the end of 2021. I was introduced to somatics work. So I had been diving into the realms of gene keys, human design, and I was super, super fascinated with it. It really was just this personal, aha of oh my gosh, I get to be me. I don't have to be in this box that everybody or that I put myself in and that I felt like I was in. And through that gene keys exploration, I met this woman that introduced me to somatic work. And we were just talking about gene keys at the end of December. And she said, "Have you heard of fawning?" And I was like, "Fawning?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Somatic work." I'm like, "Well, I've heard of it." Right. But she's just sent me a podcast episode. It's Holistic Life Navigation. Love him. He's an amazing teacher. And it was just an episode on fawning. And it hit me where I'm like, I have been doing this my whole life. I am this, it's people pleasing, for those that aren't familiar with the term fawning, it's the people pleasing, right? We want to make the environment feel comfortable. And so we do whatever it takes, even though our body is automatically responding, saying, no, stop, this doesn't feel good. But that just started me on this quest of just understanding my body more. And so I joined a 6-week program in the spring of 2022. Unexpectedly, I lost my job in the first part of May of 2022. I worked in corporate. I was a project manager and I did, the entrepreneur stuff on the side. And I was excelling in my work. I was on a fantastic team. I was one of the senior people there, 15 years that I'd been there. And I walked in on a Monday morning and they said, "We got to go for a walk." And that walk of shame when you're, walking into an office and you see HR sitting there and you see notes and papers and all this. And I looked at my boss and I said, is this really happening? And he just shook his head. And I remember his face because he didn't know. He had no idea that it was
Oh,
happening. Yeah.
wow. Wow.
Yeah. And what was interesting is I remember sitting at the table and just looking and just hearing it. And I just was probably looked so dumbfounded because, there's this shock of rejection,
Yes. Yes.
right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The shock of rejection. And then I just felt peace. Like, I know it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And, in the moment, yes, there's the fear. I got out to the car, called my husband, and, it was the shock of what do I do? And then it's just like, well, just do what you've been doing. But now it's time to do it, right?
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of May, and the timeline is important because it was 1st of May. I'm going through this 6-week somatic program, which I know 100% was helping me through that of like, okay, we're just going to process this thing that's happening, right? And then June 23rd, I was at a baseball game and I got a call that my sister was on the way to the hospital. My sister lives in California.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Utah. We are super close. There's six kids in my family, and the family knows it's her and I, and we developed this relationship as adults. But I remember in the moment of just saying, okay, well, trying to just understand what's going on. She had been complaining of, some pain. She had COVID and was just kind of pushing through it and just didn't want to overburden the medical system because that's what we've been hearing for a couple years,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so it's just, okay, I'm going to recover at home. And it unfortunately it was more than just COVID. We ended up finding out that she actually had bacterial meningitis. And, it was about 10 to 12 o'clock that they called home health to come in and check her. And when they came in, they automatically suspected meningitis and called the ambulance. And by 7 p.m., she was in a coma,
Oh, wow.
completely unresponsive. She's 37 years old. When you get a call like that, everything with the world around me stopped. There was,
Stops. Yes.
yeah, there's nothing that matters. There's nothing
Yeah.
that, it was, I mean, thankfully I have a great family unit and, my husband obviously was with the kids but everything just stopped. And because we were trying to figure out and understand what was going on in those hours,
Mm-hmm.
I had, the phone next to me till 3 I mean, we were going all night they were trying different medical procedures, essentially saving her life and doing everything that they can to prevent any further damage to her brain.
Yeah.
Did find out afterwards there was multiple strokes that had happened during that time, and it was just too much on her body.
I'm with you.
I can tell the story over and over, and
Yeah.
it still
Still
hits.
brings tears to your eyes. So go ahead and just take a moment. Just like you said, put your hand on your heart.
Mm. The interesting part is Jen was with us for the first part of the year. So she went to Scotland and got her MBA and
Mm-hmm.
graduated in
Mm-hmm.
December of 2021. And in between moving back to figuring out what was next with the jobs, she ended up staying with us for, 5 or 6 weeks. And I was actually just sitting there thinking about this the other day of, what a blessing to have that time with her. And
Yeah. Just
not
deepened your relationship even more.
yes, because I have my Time Hop app, and it brought up some pictures of when we dropped her off in March, and she ended up moving to California. And so we dropped her off, and there was the happy face, of us taking Auntie to her new adventure. And then there was, oh, we just dropped her off and now we're driving back to Utah
Yeah.
without her,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
this realization that actually was the last day I physically saw her
Saw
and
her.
was with her
Yeah.
physically, right?
Yeah.
So the story continues. So my sister put me down as the, medical contact, emergency contact.
Mhm.
And I feel like our society doesn't really actually talk about that very much
Yeah.
because I had no clue what her wishes were. I mean, I know my sister,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And, to be placed into that position of saying, okay, I get to make any medical decision on her behalf, any emergency decision on her behalf is a big responsibility.
Huge responsibility as well. Just speaking to a moment in the moment. the shock that you're in. What do I do? How do I do this? Because this has never happened like this before.
Yeah. To get news, any shocking news like that, I mean, thankfully our bodies go into a protection, right?
Yes, yes, they do.
I remember like I was talking to my family. We had a text thread going on. We were trying to, as we were getting, any of the medical information, I would pass it on. And my sister-in-law said, it sounds like bacterial, or it sounds like meningitis. And I was like, well, what's that? So little Google, pull out Google. And I was like, oh, it's just some back pain, neck pain. It's not. It is a lot more,
Yeah,
a lot bigger than that. And it is scary, very, very scary. But I remember the moment my body was like, no, like she'll be fine. This is all
yeah,
going to be fine.
yeah.
Right. And I know that
Yes,
that 100% was protection.
yes.
Because there was COVID involved, and at that time, we were still very cautious with the medical system, especially in California, that they weren't allowing visitors. And so we just waited for a couple of days while they were running tests. It was so bizarre because it was, at that time, we didn't know bacterial meningitis. It wasn't confirmed. It was suspected, right? So they were just running a gamut of tests of trying to figure out what was going on with her, MRI, CT scans, and all of this. And I just kept asking. I said, well, what is it? And they said, we don't know. And I'm like, how do you not know?
No. Yeah, yeah.
How do you not know? And they said, your sister's a unicorn. And they said that multiple times. She should not be in this position. And so we're just finding out what, like, she's in Southern California. It was a teaching hospital, state of the art. Like she was in the right place. And they were telling us that, we're just trying to figure out what's going on. A couple of days go by, they finally allow visitors to come back in. And so I fly down there the next Saturday morning. Her best friend, thankfully, had been there this whole time, was the one that finally got her to, because my sister was stubborn as they come. And she's like, I'm just going to recover at home.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to take care of me. Right. And
Yeah.
so thankfully her best friend was there and was able to finally say, okay, we need somebody to come and check you out. At least just let somebody come in. And she truly saved her life in that moment of allowing, getting the medical care there. So we got down there Saturday, and I, just walking in and seeing her. I remember sitting at the airport getting ready to fly in, and her friend called me and she said, I feel like you need to see what your sister looks like before you get down here, just in preparation. Because she said I couldn't anticipate what it looked like. She just, they've been doing surgery on her brain, different things, tubes everywhere. And I was in just this fog. I remember sitting at the airport and I'm like, how are these people just going about their life? This family over here is going on a vacation. This family, he's preparing for a business trip, and just these stories I was creating for all these people that were, just living their lives, because my life stopped.
Yes.
It was just in that moment. I even left my laptop computer in the security, just didn't even think about it until I got home, went to open my bag. I'm like, oh, I don't have a computer, yeah. So anyway, we're down there, thankfully, just figuring out what's going on. And it still took more days. It was about, I think Monday is when we're sitting there, me and her friend and Jen were just hanging out in the room. Jen was still unconscious in her coma. And they came in with their big old hazmat suits, fully gloved up, everything. We're like, wait, we're fully underdressed for this. What's going on?
Yeah.
And that's when they confirmed that it was the bacterial meningitis combined with the COVID, led to multiple strokes in her brainstem, which that is not the place that you want that to happen. And we get to just wait to find out what her body wants to do. And in that moment, they told us, and you're just listening, taking it in, and they walk out, and then I just dropped to my knees, just the worst of the news that you could get. And knowing that there's still a possibility, that hope, and then also, you're this playing with that of I don't know what's going to happen, right? The beauty in the story, and this is why I love sharing my story, because it's not all heartache. It's deep loss. It's deep grief. But there was miracle moments throughout the whole time that I got to be with her. She was in her coma for 5 weeks, and ultimately it was too much for her body, and she did pass away July 30th again, after 5 weeks of being in the coma. But I was able to just be down there for 10 days, the initial time that she was there. And this is where the somatic piece comes in, because I'm very mystical. I'm very intuitive. I love the mystical realms. Like, I can talk about angels and everything with the best of them. But what I found through this experience was how important my body was.
Yeah.
How important it was for me to sit not only with my emotions of what I was going through, but to sit and hold her hand and to put my hand on her face and feel, like this miraculous body that she has, because I believe that she was in and out during the time that she was in her coma, that she was exploring the other realms and saying, oh, wow, I can run and skip and I can do all these things. And then coming back into her body, there was a day that she had a really good friend that they spent the MBA together, and they became, inseparable. And she lived in Denmark, and she ended up flying and came to California. She's like, I just need to see her.
Yeah.
And during the time of her flight, her MBA cohort had put together videos of get well videos, and just, hey, Jen, we're rooting for you. We're thinking about you. The interesting thing, she had just gone to Scotland to a wedding, and that's actually where she picked up the COVID. So these people, there was a lot of this, like, we just saw her and we just were with her. Like, how could she be in this state, right? But her friend came in and she sent the video to me beforehand, and I couldn't get it to play. The hospital had very shoddy Wi-Fi,
Right.
and so I was like, you know what? Okay, it's not for me to play it, right? And so Mikey comes in with her computer in hand, and, I left the room, gave them some time, and she ended up, playing the video. It was able to easily play the video, no problem. And just, sat and narrated all of these sweet messages from these friends that she had spent the last year and a half with. These get well messages. We're thinking of you. We're rooting for you. And she was still unresponsive at that time. But it was about a day or two later that's when we started seeing some signs. And there's, a big part of me that feels like all of this love that we brought into that room, with me and her best friend, and then Mikey with all of the people from the cohort to come in and just say, Jen, we love you so much. Like, you're not alone in this. And I really feel like she came in and she's like, okay, I can try this. I'm going to see what we got to work with. Right.
Yeah.
And that's when we started seeing some eye twitches and some responses to light and arm movements. I mean, it's crazy the stuff they have to do to try and see how the body reacts to pain. I wouldn't wish brain trauma, brain injury, on anybody. Like,
on
just
anybody,
the care of it, because of what you witness that they have to, anyway. But we did start seeing some things. And so then this hope started coming back of like, okay, there's some life, right? You're seeing this, you're responding. Like, we felt her personality come through, because Jen is a very individual person. Like, don't touch me. Like, this is me, right? And so we have videos of like where she's just like, okay, that's enough, guys, stop. I really, in my whole heart, believe that watching her, because seeing her completely unconscious, right, and watching her make those reactions and say, okay, I'm trying this out. Let's see what arm movement I have. Let's see what leg movement. And most likely, if she would have survived this, she would have probably been paralyzed. We never saw any movements out of her legs.
Okay.
And, Jen was a wanderer. She loved travel. She loved experiencing life. And, there was times I sat with her and I said, you know what, Jen, you have choice here. This is all on you.
Yes.
First time I fully understand soul autonomy, and that space of you get to choose. Like, we all get to choose, right?
Yes.
And I said, if you choose to stay in this body, we will be here for you and we will support you in it. And if you choose to go, as hard as it's going to be for us, we will love you in it and we'll support you in it. And, so seeing those responses, it is this roller coaster of hope.
Yes.
And then despair. And I, heard somebody use the term anticipatory grief. And I was like, what's that? It's like, that, expecting what's going to happen and how I'm going to be fine because I don't want her to live this way. And that's a whole nother conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it is. Well, it's trying to placate. Yeah, yes, I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're speaking to.
Yes. Yes. So there was many, many moments of just pure joy in it. I think, did I share with you the bird? Shared with you the birds when we were in the first call.
In our first call, yeah. Go ahead, share that here
Yeah.
about the birds. Yeah.
One of the beautiful blessings in this is I had met a friend at the beginning of the year in the Gene Keys community who happened to live about 15, 20 miles away. I mean,
Mhm.
California is huge, right?
Yes, yes,
And
it is.
this this friend, she had lost her husband a few years ago. He was in a coma and in palliative care for a long time, and so she understood this road, right, from a even longer time frame. And
Time frame,
it
yeah.
was so fascinating that here this friend dropped into my world who lives right down the street from the hospital. And as soon as like I reached out to her and I said, I'm here, this is what's going on. And she says, I'm coming. We're gonna have coffee and I'm gonna come and see you. And so we were sitting outside of we had just found out about the meningitis. And at that time, it was a moment for me where I'm like, okay, this is the end, right? I don't
Mhm.
feel like she can recover from this. And it was still pretty early on, but that's where I was in that. That's what I was feeling in those
Mhm.
moments.
Yeah.
And so we were talking and she said, have her give you a sign while she's still
Mhm.
here. And I said that makes sense. And my dad, he passed away in 2014, and he comes to me with birds, and I love those moments that I get to share with him, or the red
Yeah.
truck that drives down, right?
Yeah.
So I went up into her room and I was just talking to her, and I was like, sis, let's play with this, because I like to be very playful with
Yeah.
spirit,
Yeah. Absolutely.
uh, like, so I said, let's play with this. So I told her, I'm like, show me a sign. I'm going to go down and have some lunch, and, I'll come back and I'll talk to you about it. And so I go and sit at this little table by myself. I have my lunch, and it was a beautiful campus. This hospital had a beautiful campus, and I was sitting outside amongst the trees, and there was a lot of birds that would come through there. But I'm sitting at this table, and this little bird just hops onto my table and just hops around. And I said, Dad, I know you're here, but I'm asking for a sign from Jen, please.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. But what is Jen? And I'm sitting there, and seconds later, this hummingbird flies up into my right ear, comes around, looks me straight in the face, and then flies to my other side. Oof, full chills.
Oh, wow.
And then flies off. And I just sat there and I was like, Jen, is that you? And I just got this overwhelming peace, because I talk to Jen, I still do it daily. But in that moment, I talked to her like she was there.
Yeah.
And
I'm getting
I was like,
chills as you
I
share.
know. I do every time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's you. That's you. Okay. And the really cool thing is, this wasn't the first time hummingbirds had been there. Jen moved into an apartment that had this little courtyard, and there was so many hummingbirds in this place. And so we were staying at her house. And so I had been out sitting on her balcony watching these hummingbirds. I love hummingbirds, so it wasn't, but just to have that, this is her.
Yeah.
There's zero doubt. And
Affirmation.
yes, yes. And that night I was walking out to my car after, leaving her, and I was like, hummingbird, hummingbird. And I love the gene keys, and there's animals that are linked to each gene key.
Oh, I had no idea.
And yes, it is so fun to play with it that way. And so I'm walking out and I was like, the hummingbird, I feel like I know this. And, I was doubting myself, and I was like, I know there's something significant with Jen. And so I'm Googling and look it up, and I just hear spirit laughing, because it's like, you already know the answer. Why are you looking it up? Okay, go for it. Right. So I look it up, and it is her top key, her life's work, number
My
8,
gosh.
which is all about style and like freeing yourself from mediocrity and just being the beauty of yourself. And that was
Yeah.
her, like, it's colors and it's just life, it's just living. And I was like, of course it's you. And I just like had a moment of laughing at myself that I was questioning, and then also this beautiful confirmation of like, okay, my mind can now piece it together, even though my heart and my spirit
Yes.
knows.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. We just want to understand or have, yeah, I totally get it, because I do the same thing. It's just like wanting to understand, even though we already know.
I put this reel out the other day because it just hit me. I'm like, yes, it can be a coincidence, right? It can be a coincidence that it happens to be this, happens to be that. But does coincidence give you this much peace and this much hope
No.
and love?
Yeah. There are
You
no
know,
coincidences at all.
that.
Just, yeah. Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah. You and I are on the same page with our belief. I truly believe we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And this is part of your human experience, but also
Yeah.
affirming all that you know,
Yes.
your spirit and your being. And to have this experience with your sister and even your dad.
Yes. And, that's what the whole, like, looking back, because now we're, almost 2 years into it. And I have realized, and here's where the somatic piece gets intertwined, is with my dad's death, I didn't process it. I shut down. I disassociated. And yet I've still said in the same vein that my dad is my biggest supporter in, beyond this experience, and he has been. But I hadn't fully realized how much I had shut down and not felt it. And this experience, I felt every piece of it. And it truly grounded me into that human experience, because I always joked I could live in the clouds and be totally fine. And here was something unexpected. Something I never would have wished or thought of, like, thought it could even happen, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yep. It's not supposed to happen. Yeah.
yeah, it's not supposed to. And she could have been walking across the street and got hit by a car and died. Like, all these, like, just because all that stuff goes through, it's like, this isn't supposed to be happening. Why is this happening? How come just 2 days ago we were talking and yes, there was the pain, but this isn't supposed to be happening. And so to also realize how much as a society we do bypass the part of us that aches and is in pain and grieving
Yes.
when we have these deep human experiences. And I was one of those.
Yeah.
I do, and I still feel like this polarity where, like, I'll be crying in deep in grief and then feel joy that I know that she's still with me and that she,
Yeah.
I love that, grace, we can have this grace for ourselves, that as we're
Yes.
feeling the deep human emotions, and then also this deep knowing that I don't think she's gone. I don't think death is the end. And it hit me a few months ago where I realized how tender I am now. I was a very tender child.
Yeah.
Very, very tender. Like, I would cry at everything. I would watch movies and cry, and then I shut it down because life, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
tenderness is weakness, right?
It's
And
conveyed
this,
as weakness. Yeah. It is not weakness,
yes,
but
it
yeah.
is not.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. And so losing her brought this tenderness to me that I'm crying at the drop of a hat. I can connect to people in a way that I couldn't or didn't
Before.
choose to
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
And here's the caveat, is it's like, when I'm having these tender moments, the person that I want to call is her.
Is your sister. Yes.
And it's because of her death that I'm this way, right? And
Yeah.
so it's like this, I hope I'm making sense.
Yes, you are. You're making sense. Absolute sense. Yeah. Just keep going. You're doing
Yeah.
great.
Thank you. 5 weeks, ended up coming home, went back a couple different times. Took, my mom came with me. My mom was involved in all of this, but that's a whole nother story. I truly, like, have accepted that it's her and my bond.
Yes. Yeah.
And this gets to be our story, right? Because there's other family obviously involved that are grieving her loss as well. But the next point of the beauty in the story is, I came home after 10 days of being there, and we had awesome staff there. We could call any given time, get updates, and it was multiple days of just no update, but no update is a good update when you're dealing with neuro stuff, right?
Yeah.
We are still seeing some responses. And my mom and I went back down. We ended up moving her to another facility. So it was fine, like, because she was in ICU, and this is another thing that people just don't really talk about, how care happens, right?
Yeah.
A lot of our medical system is run by insurance. Insurance says, hey, we're spending too much money on this person in this facility. Let's move her. we ended up moving her to a long-term care facility, and it was very different
Mhm.
than, this pristine white hospital that has a beautiful campus. And I
That you could call anytime
that
and get updates. Yes.
yes, yes. And I think I share this part of the story because I actually haven't shared it before. Now I'm thinking about it. But it was, for somebody that maybe has gone through loss or gone through the gamut of emotions that come through loss, I don't feel like we talk about the drop to your knees moments,
Yeah.
like, because there was beautiful, amazing moments that, like my hummingbird, right? That gives you that
Yes.
peace. And we brought her into this place, and it was different. It just was very, very different. And I came out, and I just broke down. I said, "Did I make a mistake?"
Yeah, yeah. And when you say it was different, do you're speaking to the energy, the
Mhm,
vibe, but also the people,
mhm,
because it's a totally different atmosphere when we're at the hospital and even in ICU, it's about focusing on the individual and their life to keep them alive versus going into another facility like that. What is that for? I mean, like, why? Is it being, "Oh, well, we're gonna take a chance," and it's not that you made that decision, it was the insurance company or
mhm.
insurance that said, "Oh, we're spending too much money here," but where's the oath in saying, "I'm gonna keep that person alive"? I get that that's a doctor's oath, not the insurance's oath, so the insurance is about money, and I know we don't need to go down that path, but I
No, but
just
I
wanted to
think,
speak to that.
yeah, but I do kind of want to speak to that, is because when you're going through something with your loved one, you would do anything to save their life,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, absolutely,
And
yes.
what it felt like is that we put her in this place, and because there wasn't very many that could actually care for her,
Yeah,
because of the where she was at. But we, put her in this place, and it's like she's just now a number. They call it long-term care facility, and in fact, after talking to them, here's another thing, is they moved her on a Saturday. So we got down Friday evening. They had not mentioned that it was time to move. I went and saw her Friday night. I loved the late night hours with her. There's something
yeah,
peaceful and being in, it's
mhm,
so strange to say, but I guess you got to know when you know. But I love those midnight hours with her. Just her and
yeah,
I, just being in that piece. We watched movies together, we chatted. But so I went there Friday night, and then when I went there Saturday morning, they're like, "We're moving her today." And I was like, "Wait, what?" So shock, right? There was
yeah,
not time to
again,
prepare for
shock
this.
again, mhm,
Yes, not time to prepare for this. And I remember, like, and I talked to the doctor, who there is also this bonding that happens with the care people that
yes,
saved your sister's life. And
yes,
I'm like, I looked her straight in the eyes and I said, "Is this the right move for her?" And she said, "I wouldn't let her out of my care if I didn't believe it was correct."
mm,
And so I felt that it was, because there gets to a point with ICU where, like, there's no longer just the focus on life saving, but now you have to worry about the body, right? The body is the bed sores and the different organs that are happening.
right,
Like, there's
right. Well, but what about, like, just because it was a teaching hospital, could they not just move her to, like they usually do, another floor, so they have that consistent care? It had to go to a long-term care facility, and then did you get the chance to say, "Well, what are my options?"
no.
Wow.
And in the time though, like, and here's the thing, like, when you're in the shock and you're in that space, you don't know what questions to ask if you don't know. Like, who goes through a traumatic brain injury experience more than once in their lifetime, right? And so you
Yeah,
don't know what questions to ask. And that's, I think, where the breakdown happened. It's like, oh, I guess I could have investigated different facilities. I could have talked to them. I could have done all of these things, but I didn't know that that's what you're
right.
supposed
Well,
to
and why
do.
didn't the doctor tell you or somebody tell you the night before when you were there
Yeah.
so you could mentally even prepare? Because it's
Yes.
like the shock of getting a call that your sister's going to the hospital, that's shock in itself. The shock that she's in a coma. I mean, it's like shock after shock. I mean, like it's hitting you. So it's
Yeah.
hitting you, it's hitting your body so
Yes.
hard.
Yes. And that friend that had been through this experience, I called her that night because I got home and I just was like texted. I said, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And we talked on the phone and she said, Kate, I remember this clear as day because I was in her parking garage and I walked up and just needed some sunshine, right? And I sat there and I just started bawling. But in the process of it, I was taking very deep breaths and just centering myself. And she even stopped. She goes, Stefanie, I want you to really appreciate what you are doing right now. You are breathing through this. You are breathing through this. And, so I think that, part of the sharing this of when you're going through these different things, this is where the somatic piece can come in of just honoring not just the emotions, but the body. And breath is life, right? Breath is life.
Yes, breath is life. Yes.
And so I just was breathing in it and I didn't realize that I was doing it. And we just talked through it. And she goes, you're only able to make a decision with what you have. And no decision is final. You make a decision and you say, okay, I'm not going to regret that decision, and you move forward. And then when the opportunity comes to make another decision, you make a decision and you move forward. But if you stay in that regret, the regret will eat you alive.
Yes.
And I'm even getting full chills hearing me speak those words again. And I remember like it was feeling all of the anger.
Yes.
I mean, I was mad. I was mad at myself. I was mad at the world. I was mad at the doctors. I was mad at these new doctors. I was just feeling all of that.
Yeah.
And then to just hear like, hey, you just made a decision. You made a choice.
Yeah.
And there's going to be many, many choices. And I think that applies to so much in life is you just make a choice.
And that choice was a simple, like deeply breathing deeply, and your body just automatically did it. And your friend reflected back to you, look what I'm noticing here, this choice that you made to give breath to the moment.
Yeah.
And that's what somatics is.
Yeah.
Is being present to the moment and taking that deep breath. Yeah.
Yeah. And fast forward, so we did get through that and we ended up meeting with the staff on Monday and they were fabulous. Moving on a Saturday when you have administrative is gone for the weekend, right? We were able to get a plan of care. It was the correct move for because there was a specialist that came in daily that was, she had a specialist for each part of her body. So it ended up being the correct move. But we only, and this is fully my experience, it was the following week. So we moved her on, it was, I think, the 15th. And the following week, they were lovely. They FaceTimed with her anytime, and chatted with her. We had some family or, friends of family, people coming in and visiting her, reading to her, talking to her. But I FaceTimed, and then it was the 22nd, as I remember the day, and I kept reaching out and I said, I really feel like I need to speak to Jen today. And he finally got back to me, the facilitator guy, and he said, actually, the doctor wants to speak to you. And I was like, oh, that doesn't feel good.
Yeah. I'm getting chills now as you even just said that. Yeah.
And so I happened to be with my best friend at the time, and we went to lunch that day, and we just took a little bit longer than normal, just chatting about things, right? And we had scheduled a time that we were going to meet with the doctor, and so I wasn't really in a rush, And we got out of the restaurant, and we're in this part of the town where you have to like kind of make U-turns to get back to where we needed to go, and we pull out, and this guy comes by, and he is the best with just funky. Like he's on funky in a good way. He's on rollerblades, roller skates, actually, like old school roller skates. He's got, his shirt cut off, his long hair, like just this really he just was loving life.
Yeah.
He flies by on his roller skates and I stop and I'm like, did you notice him? And my friend's like, yeah, he's super fun. Like just this random, right?
Yeah.
And we go and turn and I was like, I need to talk to that guy for whatever reason. I need to talk to him. And let me preface this by saying the time that Jen went into the hospital till her passing and even beyond, I don't feel like I was fully on earth. I would be grounded in my body, but so many mystical and spiritual things happened through this.
Yeah. Yes.
that I just listened. Like, it was just a lot of listening of like, okay,
Yeah.
what's next? What's next? What's next? Right. So we go and
Yeah.
turn around, and I was like, I gotta go find this guy. And he happens, it was an easy turnaround, and we stop and we're like, this is very, very strange, but we just need to meet you and we need to take a picture of you. And he goes, okay, you can take a picture, but I actually need a ride somewhere. We're like, okay, we're gonna let this stranger into our car. I'm trusting. And I talked to
Yeah.
Jen, I'm trusting, right? And she's like,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
he's fine. Cause I could hear her voice. He's fine. So we go and we're driving, and I tell him about my sister. And I said, just for whatever reason, he just brought so much joy to my heart. And he ended up telling us about his TikTok, and he went viral, just random things. But I can't even remember, but his name was linked to, like, I can't remember what it was, and it's going to bug me. But anyway, we just were talking through this, and he had a shirt that said, let your music out. Like, just
Yeah.
all of these little things that were just like, oh my gosh, this guy was
Little
supposed to.
signs like,
Yes,
yeah.
little signs, right? So anyway, we dropped him off. We got a picture with him. He was very, very kind. And we get back to I was dropping my friend off at work, the same place that I got laid off from. And she's like, just come inside and take the call inside. It was raining. She's like, you don't have to do this alone. Just come in and take the call inside. So we took the call, and the doctor wanted to express that we're not seeing the responses through her pupils and through the normal ways that we've been getting those responses for the whole time.
Yeah.
And they wanted to do EEG and EKG, EEG to check the brain waves.
Brain waves.
Yeah,
Okay.
the brain
Yeah.
waves. And we're going to do that on Monday. And I said, okay, well, and I said, what does this mean? And she said, we'll find out on Monday. Like,
Yeah.
I just wanted to give you a heads up so you can be processing it. We can't do it today. I don't remember why, but we'll do it on Monday. And got off the phone, pure tears, right? It was this inner knowing that I'm like, I feel like I know the outcome. I ended up, so this is the 22nd. The 22nd gene key is grace.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And it's not beyond the 22nd always, I bring in that grace into my awareness, but we cried it out. I got home. I remember getting into the shower, and I just started talking to her. And I said, sis, show me where you're at.
Yeah.
And I saw a picture of her in front of yellow flowers, smiling. And she said, sis, I'm happy. And I was like, I know that. Like, I knew that deep down that yes, I know that.
Yeah.
I get out of the shower, I go, and her friend texts me, and she sent me a picture of this bouquet of flowers. It was a tattoo. And she said, I just, for whatever reason, wanted to send this to you. This was the last tattoo that Jen wanted to get. And it was a tattoo of her 5 favorite people's flowers. And you made the cut, Steph, is what the text was. And I said, interesting. I just had this vision of Jen in front of yellow flowers smiling. And she immediately sent me a picture. She goes, what do you mean, like this? And there was a picture of Jen that they had taken together years ago of her in yellow flowers smiling. And I
Brings
said,
tears to my eyes.
you've chosen, like, you've made
Yeah.
your choice. And we were outside. We decided that as a family, we were going to do some cornhole outside, and we're playing, and this little dove comes and lands on the fence. Single dove. Normally you see doves in pairs, right? And it was a smaller one, lands on the fence to the point that my husband could almost go up and touch it before it flew away.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, Jen, that's you. We ended up going, we had the EEG on Monday. They did confirm that the brain activity was not there. So we started making a plan to go back and visit, to figure out what the next steps would be. And I said, I want a second opinion. And they said, yeah, no problem. So we got down there, and I'm telling you, like, doctor after doctor after doctor confirm that, kidneys were shutting down, her bladder was shutting down. And the interesting thing is, all of these things were actually happening when they moved her. But because we didn't ask the right questions.
That's just like so hard, because how are we expected to know what are the right questions to answer? And this is where it's like, why couldn't you tell me what questions am I not asking, in those
Mhm.
moments?
Yeah. It, through it all, like even, looking back and looking at those last days, she was there through it all. And she allowed me, I'll just speak for myself. She allowed me to process that 20-second when I feel like she left,
Yeah.
and then to get the confirmations from every doctor saying, and even one doctor walked in and I was like, oh, Jen would have a crush on him. And I'm like, yeah, of course you would send the cute doctor in. Like, of course you would, right? We had a Nurse Peggy, that I'll never forget, comes walking in, chomping on chips and just saying, life sucks. This sucks. Your sister should not be here. And she just like was just that raw human.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you even gave me Peggy, like full chills as I'm saying, you give me Peggy to say, this sucks.
Yeah.
This really, really sucks, and just to have all of this time. And even, ooh, that's not a part I'm ready to share, but just like all of these pieces was that her hand was in it all.
Yeah.
Even the last breaths, like we got to be there with her
Yeah.
and but it wasn't her.
Yeah.
She already had left. And it was just those moments of, I get to be with your body one more time.
Yeah.
I get to hug her and love her.
Yeah.
And we're going to be okay because I know you're okay. You're happy. And you ultimately made this choice. And I don't think it was an easy choice.
Yeah. Well, and when I've heard other people share stories of, and even speaking to near death experiences, when they were had their experience, they were in pure peace, they were in pure happiness. But it's not happiness. It was just like this. They felt this unconditional love just pour over them, and how they shared that they were given a choice to come back or not. And so, and it's really hard to make a choice to come back when you're in that deep love. But what I also see, Steph, is that 5 weeks of all of you together, but friends and family, but yourself, and to experience your sister through others,
Yeah.
the joy and receiving the gifts. What I heard, what one of the gifts was tenderness, but connection to people that you would have never connected with, and others who were able to, this one woman who was able to share and see what she saw in you as you were experiencing having to make choices, and so many gifts.
So many gifts. And, Jen was the person, like, she touched so many people just in her natural way. She was very selective.
Mhm.
She didn't give her heart away. And I tend to
Mhm.
do that. But when she loves you deeply.
Yeah.
And, we developed our bond more so in our adult years.
Yes.
And, like knowing that I believe she gifted me the opportunity to be there with her. I've really like played with this. Like, I don't think things happen for a reason. I think that when things happen, it's what you make of them. Right.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Jen didn't
Yes.
have to die for me to get tenderness, but Jen died.
Exactly. Yes.
She died, and these are the things that I got. And I got to spend 5 weeks literally traveling the cosmos with her.
Yes.
And it hasn't stopped. Like, she came to me in a dream. We had a conversation a few weeks before she went into her coma, that she was just calling, just wanting to vent. She was hurting. She was in pain. And I was driving
Mm.
around, didn't pull over to stop. And I was just kind of listening to her. And I had just recovered from COVID. So I was telling her, I'm like, what my experience was, you'll be fine. Everybody, we get through this. We're healthy. You're young. Yeah, yeah. And she's like, I know, but I hurt. Like, this is hard for me. Like,
Mm.
I can't see. I can't, like, she just started a job. She's worried about her job, like all these things. And I just literally was not connecting with her. I was just do whatever. I got errands to run. And I said something that I never, like, there's not words that come out, but I said, well, the world's going to end anyway. That's
Mm.
what I said to my sister who was suffering and in
Yeah.
pain. And she
Yeah.
goes, oh yeah, thanks, Steph. That's supposed to make me feel better. And
Yeah.
I held that. I remember the moment, and she came to me in a dream about a month after she passed away. And she said, I saw her in the hospital. She sat up and she said, I forgive you. I forgive you for that. You now know differently,
Yeah.
and you can handle situations differently. Like, that was
Yeah.
pretty crappy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you know differently. And that forgiveness, and this, like, she's come in multiple dreams, and we've went on vacations together, and we went, and, I share this part of it because you've heard the pieces of me share of the depths of the human experience, the sadness and
Yes.
the loss,
Yes.
and
Yes.
intertwined in that there has been joy and peace and beauty and connection. I love that you brought that in. And I'm still connected to people that I met through her,
Yes.
that
Yes.
had reached out, because, you know, death isn't the end. And yet we all experience death. It's the one thing we all have in common. And, it's my hope in sharing the story and sharing her story is just that people can you feel in their body, feel the
Yeah.
stuff that's going on, take the breaths,
Yes.
be in it, and also know, and, find the glimmers. I like to say, the glimmers of spirit through it, but it's not bypassing.
Right. It's not bypassing, but I think the key thing, I know the key thing that you just said a minute ago was that it's what we make of it. And we don't make it our story to stay in the story of and even becoming a victim to it. It's being radically responsible, taking radical accountability for self. And you listened and you heard and you got a really deep experience with your sister through this tragedy of loss. And you still get to experience her. And even your dad was a part of it as well. And that's the beauty of life. That's the beauty of we can make it what we want it to be. And there's such beauty. And also, grief is our teacher. I see your sister Jen, I see your dad as your teacher, and even the gems, all the little gems that you had together.
Yeah, my kids call her Auntie Jem.
So beautiful.
Yeah.
Stefanie, thank you. Thank you. Do you have any last words of wisdom that you would like to share?
There was a moment through the experience that I had heard some people say, like, how is Stefanie handling this so well? And and I remember walking outside and I'm like, should I be handling this differently? Like, and I just got this overwhelming feeling that you are handling it the way that you are. And so my message is, you can't handle life any other way than who you are. And you can learn and grow through the experiences. You can make different choices based off of your experiences, but your innate core, just the gifts that you are, that is how you will process life. And just be you, and trust yourself in the process, because we're all these silly humans, running around trying to figure this thing called life out. And, this experience really transformed me to live.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a catalyst for me to not play small anymore. One other piece, that, because it's coming through, is around the year anniversary of her death. So I thought I would be supporting people in grief. Like, I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
possibly be a grief coach. And what I have found since then is that grief is intertwined in my story. It's a
Yeah.
superpower. I think grief is the
Yes.
capacity to love, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
and I feel like I know I can support people in grief, but it was around the year anniversary, and I had seen my somatic teacher made a post about grief keeps you connected to your lost
Mm-hmm.
loved one. And I was like, yes, of course. And I was walking and I was like, is grief, like, am I really using this as a crutch almost?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I started crying, and I heard her, and she's like, kind of are, sis. Like, and it's okay. It's only a year, right? It's okay.
Still in the
But then,
rawness of it. Yep.
yeah. But then I sat there and I was like, how could I really honor her memory and honor her and this story and this beautiful connection that we have? And it's by being a coach. When she was staying with me the few months, or the couple months that she was here at the beginning of the year, she was like talking to me. She's like, what do you do? She knew what I did, but just we were in conversation.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I want people to live their best life. I want them to get out of their own way and like try, just, she's like, so you're a coach. I'm like, no, I'm not a coach. I'm not a coach. And she's like, okay, well, what do you do? And we just kept talking. And she's like, Stefanie, you're a coach. Own it. And so on that walk, the year of her anniversary, I was like, she's like, you're a coach. She used some flavor words, but she said, you're a coach, go be it. And it was in that moment, I'm like, I am owning that. I am owning that because this experience transformed me to live. And I want to be the inspiration and a guide to people that really, truly want to take their experiences and be with them and live a life that you are truly content and enjoy with.
Live full out.
Live full out. Let your music out, right? Like,
yeah, let your music out.
let your music out and listen to your body.
Yes, that's right. Listen to your body. Well, Steph, thank you again. And I truly feel blessed with your presence, with you sharing your story and sharing your sister with us, with all of us.
This was a 6-2 studio production. Find us at six-two.studio for all your creative sound needs.